Man, welcome back to another episode of the Think Successfully Room. This is a platform where we focus on building mindsets, we building character, bringing value to both you and your people, and aligning your body with your intelligence. I'm your host, QB So Effing Amazing, man. And man, this particular episode is real special right now. So, man, bro, I want to give a real personal story before I introduce exactly who you are, right? So, in
Absolutely.
2019, I would say, I was in a situation where I was fresh out of school, had little to no knowledge about money. It was very difficult for me to, get a house in my name, apartment in my name. Very difficult for me to get something as simple as a car in my name. And it just got to a point to where life got real hard, you know what I'm saying? And of course, I turned to YouTube University and, just looking for different information. And obviously, credit isn't something that's like, I, it's not an exciting topic, right? But I came across your content and the way that you explained it was in a way that made it exciting. It was easy for me to comprehend. It made me want to learn it. So I dug deeper into credit. You know, you are very well versed in credit. You have taught entrepreneurship. You have taught real estate. You have taught personal finance. You are the guy behind full-time CEO. You are the guy behind Credit is King. And I can tell you now, bro, everything that you have put into the world has allowed me to change my life and the people's lives around me, man. Mr. Will Roundtree, brother, how are you, man?
Man, I'm good, man. And thank you for that introduction. And I always say, man, one of the greatest forms of flattery is someone's testimony for me.
Yeah.
Because, and for the entrepreneurs who watching, because a lot of the times when you're on this side of the spectrum, you don't even know if people paying attention. When you're in your bubble, you don't know, because it's not like, when you meet your favorite rapper or you meet your favorite actor, you go up and say, oh my gosh, I seen your movie. But like when you're in this world, you don't know what
Yeah.
translate, what doesn't translate, if people paying attention, if people, like you or whatever. And so every time I hear a story or somebody's testimony, man, that's what motivates me more to keep going, because it's real easy to get trapped and be like, man, ain't nobody paying attention.
Yeah, and man, bro, I wanted to be I'm not gonna say I wanted to be the first, man, but I did wanted to, because the way I was taught, man, closed mouths don't get fed, right? So it was like,
Definitely.
man, I wanna speak to Will, and I'm out of Rockford, Illinois, and I have seen you come to different events, maybe a couple times in the
Yeah, out in
area.
Rockford, definitely.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, it would be an honor to be able to sit down and talk to him and let him know what, the information he put out into the world has changed my life for the better, man. And because I was so like, I'm self-taught, I didn't really care to uh invest money into a credit repair company or anything like that. I was more so, man, how can I find somebody that's able to explain it in a way to where I grasp it and then take that same information and then implement it into my life and obviously build on top of that, man. So appreciate you for that, bro.
Absolutely,
Um,
man.
man, so I know I'm not sure if you share a lot about your but me personally, I want to know, like, growing up, like what was in the household or what was going on around you that made you want to, just become so into the finances and the credit itself?
Man, that's a good question. I would say that it initially started because, I grew up and I wanted a pair of Jodeci boots.
Yeah.
Back when I was like
Yeah.
back in like the sixth grade.
Yeah.
And my mother asked me, she said, do you got some Jodeci boot money? Man, I remember being in like the sixth or seventh grade, and she didn't buy them for me. And so I remember I actually started working at a very young age. I had my first job when I was 11. I was a golf caddy. And being a golf caddy, you don't, and of course at 11 you don't make a lot of money. I was making, about $11 in tips
Mm,
for a day of golf. And so growing up around just having aspirations of wanting more, I believe that's where it first started.
Okay.
Then, I started working with my grandfather about the age of 12, 13 years old. And I actually just learned this. My grandfather could not read or write, but he
Mhm.
owned over 45 homes and had two car washes. And so I just knew that he never went to work for somebody else. I just remember, working with him in the summertime, helping him fix on his houses, and he always had money. And so then, of course, as you get a little older, you start seeing the D boys, the pimps, players, like you just start seeing money around. And I was just like, man, like, what do people do to make money? And I really didn't learn or have any aspirations of doing what I'm doing until I got in my 20s. And I always
Mm.
share that story primarily because, it wasn't like something I was born into. It wasn't something like my parents didn't talk about money. My parents, we always say like we were lower middle class. We could afford the things that we needed, but clearly, we didn't have enough for me to get Jodeci boots. We had just enough to be able to
Yeah.
eat, to get back and forth, and different things of that nature. But I remember also too, this was around the time when hip hop started getting popular, and just having aspirations of always wanting more, man. But coming up and growing up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I'm not sure if I shared that. We didn't have people around, or at least I didn't know. I didn't have proximity to them. Anybody who was pouring game into me. Nobody was telling me, "Oh, you should go this route. You should go that route." And it wasn't until I got into entrepreneurship and started learning about personal development and got mentors. And then I remember at the age of 24, my very first mentor started talking to me about wealth building and mindset. And then I had a mentor who said, Will, eventually credit will become the new dollar. And I would
Mm.
say that's probably where that first spark came from. And we're talking 2004 when I first heard that term. And I didn't even really know what credit was. I had never looked at my credit score. I just knew that I had bought a couple cars at one point, and I never really had aspirations of having to use credit. 2005, I moved to Las Vegas and I found out what credit is. Having
Mhm.
bad credit is expensive. I had to put 2, 3 times down deposit on an apartment, couldn't get a car without a cosigner. Life is very expensive when you have bad credit. And
Yeah.
so if I had to sum everything up, I really got into this industry because of a personal need of mine, of me getting frustrated where I was at financially. And nobody, there was no YouTube around, there was no TikTok, no Insta. I was literally going to the library just reading books about finance, economics, credit. I would go to the internet cafe because I didn't even have a laptop. I didn't have, Wi-Fi. I couldn't afford any of that. And so I remember going to the internet cafe that they used to have out here in Las Vegas on Maryland Parkway across the street from UNLV. And I would pay $5 an hour to get on the internet and just research as much as I could about credit and the laws and different things. So that's how it actually got started, man.
Man, so that was actually I actually didn't expect you to go that deep, but I think appreciate you for that, man.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of different things that you said, and a lot of different questions popped up in my mind, right? So the first one is you said you were getting frustrated with where you were at financially, right? Um, a lot of times I don't believe people really, because it's a lot of people that I know personally that gets frustrated with where they at. But could you explain exactly, what do you, or what type of drive do you have to have in order to sit here and change that? Because sometimes people get unmotivated; they don't be motivated to change their situation.
Well, I always tell people the reason somebody isn't motivated enough because it doesn't hurt enough. When there's not enough pain, you're not motivated. You think about someone who goes to the doctor and it's a health related issue, and the doctor says, Will, you got 6 months to live. That'll motivate you to change your diet, you know,
Absolutely,
very quickly.
absolutely.
But if you just go to the doctor and he say you have high cholesterol, you don't care because it,
Mm,
it doesn't hurt
yeah,
enough.
yeah.
Same thing when it comes to your finances and your credit. I was motivated enough because the pain of, me sleeping in my car, the pain of me hiding a car from the repo man for 2 years, the pain of me not having, like, I didn't have a safety net out here in Las Vegas. I didn't know anybody. I moved out here. I had $500 to my name. I didn't have any relatives. I didn't have any friends. Half the time my phone was disconnected, but I was determined to make it past the mode of survival,
Mm-hmm.
because going back to Milwaukee was not an option for me. Going back to Milwaukee, I was still going to be poor. Going back to
Mm-hmm.
Milwaukee, I was going to be living in my parents' basement. Going back to Milwaukee, I didn't want to go and work at a warehouse. No disrespect to anybody that works for a warehouse, but I felt like I had exhausted all of my options. And then not only that, I was in a place mentally where my life was in danger of myself, because I had just got to the point of depression. So why would I put myself back in that state of mind?
Right.
So
Right.
my pain drove me to being motivated. And when people tell you that they're not motivated, it's because it doesn't hurt enough.
You know, that is some of the realest advice that I've ever heard, man. I never heard anyone put it that way. Cause I used to question myself or ask people, well, why aren't you motivated? But that makes sense, right? So now, I also want to ask you this, bro, is you brought up co-signers and you brought up credit is the new dollar, right? A lot of times people don't know exactly how detrimental co-signing can be, right? So, they ask somebody to co-sign for an apartment or maybe even a vehicle. But a lot of times they don't know how bad of a burden that would be on that person that's co-signing. Could you explain to them exactly, hey, what co-signing is first and foremost and how detrimental that can be?
Yeah,
And
no.
maybe what
So
you have to consider when
no,
co-signing.
absolutely. So co-signing essentially meaning you're assuming financial responsibility of whatever it is that they're looking to consume. So if that
Mm,
person is saying, "Hey, Will, can you co-sign for me to get this vehicle?" I am now accepting shared responsibility of that. Meaning, if they don't make a payment, it falls on me. And
yeah.
so I'm not co-signing for anybody, especially if I know what their habits look like. Because if I see you like to have fun with your money, you could never get me to co-sign for you. The only way I would co-sign for somebody is if it's a situation where I'm going to accept responsibility financially from month one.
Mhm.
So now, but I'm also the only people who I would ever consider that is probably my son. But I'm positioning him, who's now 15, to have good credit by the time he's 18. And and it's going to be up to him to go out there to continuously be disciplined and et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't mean I'm going to still automatically co-sign for him as his scapegoat. He's going
Right.
to have to learn how to go through those ebbs and flows and figure out flight or survival as well.
Mhm.
Because if I just make everything cushy for him, he's not going to learn. And so the detriments of co-signing for somebody is if they miss a payment, or if they default, or if they just, avoid responsibility, that now falls on you financially. It can ruin your credit, because a lot of the times you don't even know that they're getting missed payments and falling behind and getting late payments and getting default until the vehicle is repoed, or the apartment they get an eviction. And so if you're
Mhm.
not willing to accept 100% of the responsibility up front, I tell someone, never co-sign for somebody else.
Absolutely. And I wanted to bring that question up because a lot of people tend to co-sign for somebody else without really truly understanding what that means, right? So uh pretty much like you just said, it's like when you co-sign, it's almost like it's yours, you know what I'm saying? Because you
Pretty
accepting
much.
100% of the responsibility. So I tell so I have young I'm the oldest out of seven, right? So a lot of
Okay.
times and and again, bro, the information you guys gave me, I passed that on to my younger brothers and help them with their credit as well. And I try to communicate with them as far as how important it is to not just throw their name on anything. Like um, having them understand, like, look, you gonna have people around you that want to, I guess, utilize your resources for their benefit. So if they go to a car lot and they see a vehicle they want, their credit might not be good enough to get the vehicle that they want. So they may be trying to put them in like a little Dodge Neon type car or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But they know, like, look, he got good credit. I'm gonna see if he could co-sign for me. But by you not being as knowledgeable about cosign, exactly what that means, you just go ahead and throw your name on those documents, and now the responsibility becomes yours as well. So I think it
Well,
was very important for me to throw that up in there.
yeah, no, absolutely. And just to piggyback off that, that's because the car salesman sold the person who's doing the co-signing a story as well too. They'll be like, "Hey, Will, just co-sign for your friend, your nephew, or whatever, and then we'll refinance them in 90 days." But then the person never does anything to fix their credit so they can go back and refinance. And so I'm one of the belief that no, let instead of putting a band-aid on a gunshot, let's heal the bullet wound. And so
Right, right.
co-signing doesn't make the person change their habits. If you got to
Mhm.
get that Dodge Neon, well, that's what you're going to be driving. And while you're
Yeah,
driving that, let's fix your credit, because then
yeah,
if they don't want to assume the responsibility of fixing their credit, then that tells me everything I need to know. I don't want to invest any time in my resources in helping them strengthen their credit if they don't care. Because all
yeah.
they care about is just riding or driving or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it would have to be somebody who also has just as much motivation to change their circumstances I do.
Right, right, man. I like that, bro. Your analogies is fire, man. I like that,
Thank you,
man.
man.
So, man, the from the first, and then the last question I had, the next question I had from when you was telling me about how you grew up as far as money, you said credit would your mentor told you credit would become the new dollar, man. Could you explain? I know what that mean, but for the people that's watching, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, definitely. So, and I'll give the layman's and then I'll give the broader definition. So the layman's is that credit is the new dollar because we've never been conditioned to look at credit as currency. We've
Mm,
only been conditioned to look at credit as this thing that gets people in trouble. And I tell people a blank checkbook can get you in trouble,
mm,
not just credit. I tell
yeah.
people your paycheck can get you in trouble. And so we have to understand that all of these things are tools, and these tools are utilized to, if you utilize them right, can position you in life in a good position or a bad position. And
Hmm.
so credit being the new dollar, when I truly understood what that meant, I was able to take credit and be able to use it just like another form of currency to be able to go out there and invest. But
Right.
the
Yeah.
benefit it gave me by using credit as opposed to utilizing a dollar, then I started learning about economics,
Hmm.
knowing the difference between earned income and debt. Earned income, you're always taxed. So for every dollar I make, I'm taxed 30%. So I'm always operating at a 30% deficit. Versus if I go borrow a dollar, it's worth a dollar because I don't pay taxes on it. So somebody who is utilizing earned income to invest versus somebody who leverages credit to invest, you cannot compete because my dollar is worth more than your dollar. And so
Hmm.
when once I started to understand the dichotomy of economics and not just money, then you also start to learn that money is debt. But because we haven't been conditioned to understand that, or we haven't been taught, and people often ask, well, Will, how is money debt? Because for every dollar you make, it costs you. It costs you time, you pay taxes, and you can never really use the full dollar because you still got to live off the dollar.
Right.
I can
Right.
go borrow a dollar and just assign it somewhere, and I can utilize that to go out there and make me money. And then I'm not in a, I didn't, it didn't cost me any time. I didn't have to put in any hours. I didn't have to pay any taxes. All I did was assign it somewhere where I knew it was going to make some money at, whether it be the stock market, real estate, or whatever. And so until I started understanding those concepts, man, like I didn't really understand what credit was. I thought it was just to go buy some shoes, get fly, hang out, which is
Yeah.
what we've been conditioned to do.
Yeah,
And that's why I
absolutely.
think it's so hard for a lot of people to conceptually understand that all credit is, it's a tool. It has no feelings. It can't beat you up. It doesn't talk back. It
Yeah.
literally is just a tool, and we have to learn how to use the tool in the right way.
Right. So correct me if I'm wrong, bro. And this has a lot to do with OPM, right? Just utilizing other people's money. Um, yeah. So with OPM, the way I look at that is so me and one of my homies, man, we had conversations all the time regarding, because we both got into credit around the same time. And when we realized that, when we first got our credit to where we wanted to be at, we started getting all of these pre-approval offers, right? Just based off how our credit report was structured. Let's say, for example, I probably got pre-approved for a Chase card or something, and on that Chase card, it may be, I don't know, let's just say 6,000 on there. So I was kind of thinking like, okay, let's say if we wanted to start something, invest in something, maybe even start a business, why would we take some of money that's, you know what I'm saying, why would we take our money to create this when we could just utilize the credit that was available to us to create it, you know what I'm saying? And then just invest that, see a profit from it, and then whatever we make, we put it back on the credit card. So that same concept, does that same concept apply to what you're saying?
Absolutely, man. And matter of fact, if more people knew that that is one of the easiest ways to escape the rat race, more people would do it.
Mhm.
But the reason people don't do it is because they have too much emotions tied to the credit.
Yeah.
And it's always mind blowing that I'll see people, they'll swipe their credit card for a night of pleasure. I live out in Las Vegas. People spend credit cards at the clubs like they going out of style. But
Yeah.
you'll have to convince them to take that same credit card and go and invest in something that can appreciate in value, whether it's
Yeah.
real estate, gold, the stock market, crypto. They'll be more hesitant talking about, well, what if it doesn't work, versus investing in things that don't work whatsoever. And
Right. Right.
so there has to be this paradigm shift of people's way of thinking, and it's because I personally believe that because people actually look at credit as income, and it's
Mhm.
not. Credit
Yeah.
is merely just a tool.
So by you being in Vegas, bro, and obviously you wouldn't be able to give me an exact number, right? But I'm sure a lot of people, obviously vacate to Vegas. And just like I see in the city that I'm in, right? And a lot of times I used to think to myself, like, I wonder how many people in this club got bad credit. You know what I'm saying? I wonder how many people is on this dance floor, got bad credit, probably at
Right.
home with their parents. It's hard for them to get a vehicle. They got these high ass car notes. Like, I
Right.
used to have you ever sat and thought about that?
Oh,
Like,
man,
by being
all
in
the
Vegas?
time, all the time. When I go out, I'm just looking out in the sea of, potential individuals, and I'm like, man, I bet half these people have no idea that they're in a financial ruin.
Yeah.
And even when you think about the average credit score in the Black community, it's a 621.
Mm,
So if you go to an event that's a Black established event, or it's predominantly Black people in there, we already know that the majority of them are probably not in the best position, I'm gonna say economically, because
yeah.
I know people who make $200,000-300,000 a year and they're still poor.
Mm. And I wonder if, well, I'm not even gonna say wonder. So I feel like a lot of times, at least from what I see, a lot of times I think people tend to run away from their pride, even if they know they are in a bad situation financially. A lot of people use the club and the nightlife as a way to escape reality. And I would say my question to you is, bro, is what do you feel we will have to work on in order to, like, as far as that? What is the first step for those guys to better their finances, instead of just using the club as a way to escape?
Man, that's a really great question, and I'll answer it, but let me say this. I
Okay.
think because of the marketing of what we've been conditioned of how to relax. You know,
Mm.
growing up as young black men, we've been taught to have a drink to relax. We've been taught that weed puts us in another zone, and like we've been sold
Yeah.
all of these different things. And so I would say the first thing is that, and I actually learned this being around one of my mentors going back again in 2004. I remember, I was sitting in my apartment. I literally had no furniture. All I had was a dinette table set, a recliner couch, and a bed with no frame on it, no headboard. Like that's all I had in my apartment, and a
Yeah.
and a big screen TV. You know, everybody black in the hood be having big screens, and
Yeah.
so he came by my house. He had a brand. This when the Escalade truck first came out. I
With
remember
a mug. Yeah.
yeah, he had on like this Italian casual cream suit with some loafers, and he had a Rolex on, and it was in that. And then I remember he's like, "Hey, Will, come get in the truck. Let's take a ride." And to just sit in his Cadillac, you still got the fresh scent. You know, he got like, I mean, the proximity of seeing what was possible is what changed my life.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, it's the proximity. People aren't around people who are thriving enough. And this
Mm.
is why I say that one of the biggest minorities on this planet are winners. And so when you hanging around people where the way that they deal with things is alcoholism, or lustful, temptation, and all of these different things that will eventually drain you and eventually have you spending a little bit of money you do have, you'll
Hmm.
never get out of that level of psychosis. And
Yeah.
so this is why environment is so important, and not saying that you necessarily have to move out of your city or move out of your state. It may have to be that extreme, but
Yeah.
find different groups of people who just want more, find people who are winning. It may be a little sacrifice. You may have to pay to go join a gym where people are, thriving. So now, because the other thing that I've learned, there's a correlation where people who are usually in shape or care about their body, and people who are on their mode of financial gain, because the level of discipline is still the same.
Yeah.
And so I
Facts.
tell people that if you aren't putting yourself around people who are winning, it's going to be damn near impossible to change that. Because for a lot of people, and I always tell people to ask, do this poll. It's two questions I ask people to figure out where they are in their journey. The first one is I ask them, what are their goals?
Hmm.
97% of people can't tell you their goals. They'll just say, "Oh, I want to be financially free." And I say, homeless people are financially free. You got to dig deeper than that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the other question is you ask people, what's a lot of money to them? And the default answer is always six figures. And so we have to understand that a lot of the times we're not even putting ourselves in certain situations or in rooms to be around people who think bigger. And
Mm.
I remember I was at a meeting a couple weeks ago, and this guy was just talking about how he did 100 million in exits, meaning he's built and sold companies, and of course the net worth of the companies he's built and sold over the course of 10 years, and this was his group, was a 100 million. Now that's not
Mm.
what he pocketed, but that was, and the first thing I said to myself, damn, I ain't thinking big enough. But you would
Mhm.
never even think to that term, because we're around people, and no disrespect, we're just around people a lot of the times who think, you know, $40 an hour is a lot of money. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the highest, in the book, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, they talk about
Hmm.
the law of the lid. You can only rise to as high as the lid of your leader. So if the
Fire.
leader
Fire.
in your circumference, whether that be your parents, whether that be your best friend, or whoever it is, even your mentor, there's mentors out there who think too small, and that's why their
Mhm.
tribe isn't growing. If your thinking is like, man, I just want to be able to make $40 an hour and be able to get this Tesla and just be like, you can't, you don't put yourself in a position to even to even get outside or escape that, to think big enough so that you can win the way you really want to win.
That is fire, man. That lead of knowledge. I'm finna have to. What was the name of that book again?
The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell.
John. Okay, I messed with John. Man. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go pick that up, man. That was actually, man, that was amazing, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate you for that, bro.
100%.
Man, it was one more thing I wanted to throw in there before
Yes,
we
sir.
before we wrapped it up here. I have found myself in situations where I may have somebody around me that I feel needs to be doing more, and it may be times we have heated arguments. Um and and a lot of times when you care for somebody and you want to see them grow, but they just refuse to change they circle. It gets to a point to where, sometimes the energy just ain't calls for it. You got to let them bump their own head, make their own mistakes. And what I'm saying, it's either they catch up or they don't. And I just want to throw that in there for people, man. So yeah, appreciate you for that explanation, bro, because it definitely was needed. Um,
Yeah,
man,
you're
Will.
welcome. Let me say something to that though, real quick.
Okay.
Something I learned a long time ago: he who cares the most loses.
Mm, mm,
So when you care about a lot of people who don't want to win, you're gonna always lose.
mm. I
They
like
have
that.
nothing to lose.
Yeah,
So I tell people, man, like, I'm not dragging anybody across this finish line who I gotta convince to get on my back. We
fire.
gotta we gotta run together.
Yeah, that's a gem, man. That is a gem, man. You been dropping gems this whole episode, man. And
Thank you.
again, man, like going back to the beginning of the episode, I stayed watching your content because of the way that you do explain things, especially
Right.
for, at the time I was like 27, 26, 27 when I first came across your content. So I'm fairly young, and no disrespect to white instructors or white, credit specialists, whatever you want to call them. But like as a young brother, it was easier for me to listen to another brother, you know what I'm saying, and
Absolutely.
actually take what he was saying and run with it, man. So man, bro, I wanna say thank you, bro, for your work and the material you put out into the world. Man, it helped me, and I'm sure other people more than you can imagine. And like I said before, man, that the information has allowed me to teach my younger brothers as well, and people around me. And man, appreciate you for hopping on this episode with me, Brody.
And man, anytime, man. I love to see when young brothers are on this path because, and I always try to get on their podcast because I
Um,
know that at one point I was in a lot of their positions
yeah,
and it was frustrating. People wouldn't hit me back, and I got to beg and all of this stuff. So, man, like, no,
yeah.
I always try to make sure that I'm reaching back and helping. No, I want to use the word help. I'm always reaching back and just showing my appreciation to saying like, man, I love what it is that this new generation of people in this industry are doing. So keep doing your thing, man.
Man, appreciate it, bro. Yeah, you definitely got back quicker than I thought, but it was kind of one of them things where I had a conversation with one of my big sisters, Tiffany Ingram, and I was telling her like, man, it'd be nice to get Will on the platform, and she was kind of like, man, just reach out to him. I mean, what's the worst he could say is no. And she was
Shout out
the
to Tiffany.
yeah, Tiff. Yeah, she was kind of like, what's the worst he could say is no. He done been to Rockford before, and I would just reach out to him, and and just don't be afraid to ask, and that's what I did. And man, bro, you got back to me at a reasonable, quick, actually, and man, was excited about that, bro. So yeah, man, we're gonna go ahead and close it out then, bro. Unless is it anything you wanna add into the episode before we close it out?
Man, the biggest thing I always tell people, man, like, and this has kind of been my message and my thing when people have been sending me like Happy New Year messages. And I'm saying, like, look, make this year personal.
Hmm.
Make this about you. This has to be the most unselfish year that you have. And stop waiting until a certain checkpoint in the calendar year to start. Get
Yeah,
started now. And
absolutely.
3 weeks ago I told myself, you know what? I want to take an acting class. And I'm doing it because it helps me more with my public speaking. I didn't say, oh, well, in January, I'm going to take an acting class. I went online that day and I booked an appointment and I signed up to start doing acting. So like, make this year your year. I know everybody say that every December 31st, but no, really make this year not just your year, but make it personally about you, your well-being. And figure out what it is that you really want. Because again, if it doesn't hurt enough, then motivation you'll never complete it ever.
Man, and this, to be honest, this might be the first episode that I have shot that I will probably go back and rewatch a lot of different times, man, simply because the conversation was genuine. I had no notes. This was all off the energy of the conversation, man. So, man, bro, appreciate you, man. We're going to go ahead and close it out. I know I said 30 minutes. We had 35, and I know you probably... But, yeah, man, we're going to go ahead and close it out, bro. Mr. Will Roundtree, appreciate you for hopping on this episode, brother. It was an honor, man.
Mine.
So, yeah, man, if y'all, as always, y'all, if y'all enjoy this content, make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure y'all check us out on Instagram as well. Man, my guy, Will Roundtree, I'll make sure I put his information in the description as well. And as long as I see support, that's what helped me, even if it's a little support, that's what helped me continue to keep putting out this valuable information, y'all. So without that being said, life is good. Life is wonderful. Be blessed to be alive. Self-sufficiency is how you survive. To the kings and queens, to the guys and goddess, forever and always. Think successfully. It's sex.